relatively swift session here. So we're going to run through a few of these things, and some of them we won't spend much time on. But for those of you who don't know who Zoetis are, this may become our mantra. Sheep farming is a great industry, and it's an exciting time to be part of it. We, so all of us at this forum, are all responsible for progressively lifting the bar on land production by acting as genetics champions for all farmers in New Zealand. Okay, so that's where we sit. That's what we're going to be about. And down here, turning data into information for you guys to be able to make better decisions. There's been a few questions and a little bit of debate about the breeds and the traits that a Sheep 5K is able to report on. So just to be a bit of a reminder, it's still Romney, Coopworth, Perrindale and the composites of those breeds. We would love to have something slightly more Texel, but again, it's about building up that resource. And the next calibration of Sheep 5K is due in September, so maybe there'll be a good news story there. We're not sure. We have to wait for Michael Lee to get back from Sweden. But let's hope for it. The only breed by trait mix that we are not reporting, basically because the reliability of that prediction is not good enough, is DAG score for Perrindales. So adult and lamb DAG score for Perrindales. That's the only mix that we're not doing. Yeah. It's a factor of the recording data set behind the genomics, which means that we can release a prediction reliably, and so there's just not enough of it at the moment. We also get questions about accuracy, and we've decided to not really talk about percentages and things like that because it seems to get quite confusing, especially on the beef side where you talk the difference about accuracy and reliability. So we're going for progeny equivalence as an expression of accuracy. So someone in the previous session said, so how accurate, after seeing this table, how accurate is NLB? And so NLB, the accuracy, it's equivalent to having 16 lambs or daughters on the ground lambing. And you can get that information as a ewe lamb itself. Okay? So that's very accurate information. We worked out before that on the Romney side, NLB is actually at 27 progeny equivalents. And even if she had triplets every single year, it would take 8 years for her to have lots of lambs. So the accuracies are growing all the time. On the facial eczema side, this is the average across all of the breeds. So on average it's 3. Perrindale is 1, I think. Coopworth is 2. Romney is 6. So different breeds have different levels of accuracy, but this is the average across the breeds. Okay, and FEC is an interesting one. It's quite high. Where's FEC? Down here. Particularly for Coopworth. There's lots of FEC data for Coopworth, so they have a really accurate FEC prediction in Sheep 5K. All right. Still, remember, genomics is a tool for young animals. It's not about doing a test on a proven sire. It's about getting information which is as accurate as having 12 recorded wean weights on the ground as a ram hogget. The next slide is, we talked about sire verification and pedigree error. Okay, there's plenty of it out there, and it's probably an important aspect.
So we talked about in there DNA parenting, and somebody said, well, do the sires, but you can't actually prove the appearance of the sires unless you actually have the
sire genotype.
The sire genotype
banked
of that ram banked in there before.
Yep.
So I'm not sure people really realise that.
So
you the female too?
Absolutely, yeah. Well, whole flock people tend to. So some of the societies are going, sire verification is very important. So let's at least get that right. Some of the interesting things we see in Sheep 5K is people think they know, or they think that the recorded pedigree is right, and so they get back their verification results as part of Sheep 5K, and they see that actually the sire is not the sire that they thought it was. We just say, it did not pass.
This was verification of the actual rams
of the rams
that are used in the mating program.
That's
so
right.
The 2-year-olds or 3-year-olds.
Yep. So breeders go back and they check all their books and they go, well, who could it be? Who could it be? can you please try this sire or try that sire? So we do that, still with no result, and coming back to the importance of having a bank of sire genotypes, ultimately we just say, look, we don't know who the sire is, cast that genotype over the whole database and see what comes up. And often it's, it is there, it's just was quite different to the sire that they thought it was. So the sire genotype is really critical.
But I think also they thought the question was that people are not doing DNA could also sire test their sires to see whether the parentage was correct of those ones that were not doing DNA blocks. So it won't really work.
Not unless they start investing on their own sires, or they're talking about verifying rams from outside sires.
Whereas the beef industry can do it because all their animals have already been done.
Well, no, they haven't. They've got the same issue. There's plenty of herds out there that are not right.
AI size?
Yes,
It's, the start of anything we're doing.
As a demonstration of how valuable correcting pedigree can be, this is really hard to see because of the light. But this is an Angus herd. This is the breed average. This is the average of the herd itself. Those three lines, the three dots there, are 3 years of genetic gain, which are basically flat line. So the issue was discovered in that second year. So a plan was implemented to do sire verification, and from that point on, as progeny from that exercise came back into the herd, genetic gain started to take off again. Okay, but if that wasn't recognised as an issue, that flatlining would have just carried on. So simply getting your pedigree right is really, really important. In my view, if you don't have accurate pedigree, you really don't have a lot. So. Sheep 5K versus shepherd, there's different prices involved and different reasons why you want to use them. Shepherd, whilst it's nice having accurate pedigree, is actually a management tool. It's actually has many management benefits. And actually accurate pedigree is an outcome of that, really. And obviously Sheep 5K is the genomic side with all of the single marker gene tests and sire verification included. So in terms of the return on investment of genomics, we get this question a lot, and I've got a demonstration of someone who I think is getting a really good return on investment, but sometimes we sort of analysed that $69, what does that equate to in terms of index cents? And there's some numbers you can apply, and it's about 30 index points or 30 cents as it equates to $69 of investment. Now, in reality, it's different to that because that $69 is actually leveraged out over all the use, so that the increase in points that you actually need to achieve is a lot less than 30 cents. It's quite achievable. What does that mean in terms of actual traits? 30 points is equal to about 220 grams of weaning weight or 1% extra lambs. And you would never get the $69 investment in one trait, it would be across all of the traits. Okay? But that's what it kind of equates to. And in terms of a breeder in New Zealand who we think is actually getting significant return on investment, we do have a number of them are starting to pop out now. Sheep 5K was really sort of commercialised from 2013 on. We reckon that they're getting about 45 cents more index points per year across the flock, and they've been doing that for about 5 years. They've been investing about $13,000 a year, okay, and that investment has produced about $126,000 worth of better genetics for themselves and their clients. Okay, and so that's a return of about 2 to 1. So we believe it absolutely stacks up. But you have to be using the tools appropriately, right? You've got to be. We have lots of people who invest in Sheep 5K and then they sell all the animals. They seem to think that ram buyers will buy more for a ram or a bull just because it's been genomically tested. It doesn't happen. Genomics is a breeding tool, it's not a marketing tool. As an example of change in genetic trend in beef in the States, I'm sorry about the sun, but this is genetic trends for 2 herds in the USA. They invested in a whole herd genomic program 2 years after that investment, as replacements from that testing started to come into the herd, their genetic trends just started to change significantly, which is great. And we're seeing that in dairy, sheep and beef around the world. Coming back to New Zealand in terms of changes in genetic trend, we're starting to see some interesting things like the pink line is the breed average for DPO. The black line is a breeder who's been using genomics as well as a few other bits and pieces, but you know, the ability to actually overtake the industry is there. If you're using the right tools, you've got accurate pedigree, you're recording well, and you're using all those tools appropriately. But so it can happen. You can get significant change in genetic gain. And so what does success look like? I would say BLG, BLG, BLG. What I really mean is, if you're keen on genomics, submitting an industry a sire sample every year as part of that program doesn't cost very much bit of time, but it certainly banks that genotype for the future. Record well, sire verify, use indexes more. I'll be a devil's advocate and say, rather than saying, why should I use that RAM, maybe say, why shouldn't I use that RAM? You know, flip it on its head. Is there anything particularly wrong with that RAM which is of high merit? As a demonstration of change in industry, each one of these green blobs is a crop of lambs, okay? A crop from a flock. So we've got 2012, 13, 14 and 15, and they have a curve because it's a curve of merit within the flock. So for 2012, there were some animals which were really high index, and there's some animals which were really low. But there's a curve of the whole flock, okay? The black lines are where this flock is choosing its sires from every year. Doesn't account for outside sires, but this is where they're choosing their sires from. So they are choosing some high merit animals, but they are choosing some animals which are almost right down the bottom as well. Okay, they're using a hogget or two, but they're using a lot of older rams. Okay, so that's pretty typical. We're also seeing things like this, where the sires are being chosen from the better merit end of the scale. So people are seeing that they can have animals that look good and have good numbers, and they're starting to use them, which is great. And we're also seeing things like this, where they did tend to have a pretty traditional sort of sire selection policy, but over time they've actually moved. In fact, only within 3 years, they've changed the way they've chosen their sires, probably because they're starting to use numbers a little bit more, which is, I think, pretty cool.